Emma Harrison left work at 5 p.m. on October 26, 2022. She was planning dinner with her sister, Clara, a routine event. Yet by the following evening, Emma wasn't home, sparking a chain of events that exposed a silent conspiracy. What happened in those critical 24 hours? Let's examine the evidence. Clara Harrison, Emma's younger sister, attempted contact the evening of October 26th. Calls went straight to voicemail. Clara dismissed it. Emma had texted earlier, feeling off. This small detail, a text message, would later become a significant point of contention. The timeline shows Clara waited, assuming an ordinary reschedule. It wasn't. Emma failed to report for work on October 27th. Her supervisor, Mr. Malcolm Croft, noted her absence but didn't immediately follow up. According to initial police reports, this was not unusual for Emma. However, Clara, driven by a growing unease, decided to visit Emma's apartment that evening. What she found speaks volumes. The door was unlocked. A half-eaten meal sat on the counter. Emma's purse and keys rested on the entrance table. But Emma, herself, was gone. No signs of struggle. No forced entry. Just an absence. Clara immediately contacted the authorities, reporting her sister missing. The question of Emma's whereabouts would become the central mystery. Detective Mark Riley was assigned the case on October 28th. His initial assessment, based on the lack of struggle and the unlocked door, classified Emma's disappearance as voluntary, a young woman, stressed, deciding to leave on her own will. This assumption, however, would soon be challenged by the facts that were largely overlooked in the early stages of this investigation. The official narrative was taking shape, but the evidence was already starting to tell a different story. And that's where it gets strange. A life interrupted. Słodkowa popoludni 26 Piodlanita 2022 roku, Emma Harrison, Młoda Kekowa, Sterling & Co., Sila Kroka, Intrygieja wiadomość do swojej siostry. Clary, czuje się dimie. Chiba bendera musiała prelodyć kolacjo. Ten tekst, tu zaledwie 11 slo, był ostatnim znanym ogniwem laczkim emmet kimkolwiek. Ostatnim przed tym, jak zniknął. Ko mogło wywołać tu nagle poczucie niepokoju u Emmy? A czy uczucie dimnocie było jedynie złym samopoczuciem, czy może sygnałem czegoś znacznie bardziej słowecznego, czegoś ko sprawiło, że je ciecie jak u Emmy zostało prezerwane? Aby odpowiedzieć na te pytania, musimy cofnąć się i baktylnie zanalizować ostatnie godziny Emmy Harrison, krok po kroku, the evidence log. Jak znidźmi, zgodnie z naszymi ustaleniami, Emma zalogowała się do pracy o godzinie 9 rano. Dzień wydał się normalnie przyznać niej na zewnątrz. Pracowała jako młodca kekoła Sterling & Co. Firmy, tylko na tle innych korporacji wyróżniała się nienaganna reputacja. Emma, lat 32, była osoba metodyczna z analitycznym umysłem. A tu ten analityczny umysł jej zawodowe narzędzie pracy doprowadził do mieszka, z którego już nie wróciła. Zapisy z ślubowego komputera wskazują, że tego dnia kontynuowała pracę nad własnym audytem. Pan Malcolm Croft, że przedłożony, płynnie potwierdził, że Emma była w ostatnich tygodniach wyjątkowo zaangażowana w ten projekt, to zaangażowanie miało swoje ceny. Między godziną 9 a 11:30 Emma prowadziła intensywną korespondencję mailową. Zgodnie z aktami sprawy, część tych wiadomości dotyczyła Phoenix Holdings, kluczowego klienta Sterling & Co. Dokumenty ujawniają, że wymiana była daleka od rutynowej. Treść wiadomości wskazuje na rosnące napięcie. Nie zgadza się, pisała Emma w jednym z maili. Nie kogo tego podspitysi, w innym. Kobat klotin Emma odkryła wikiegak Phoenix Holdings, to kluczowe pytanie. Zeznania świadków, w tym Sarah Jenkins, inne sugerują, że Emma była bardzo zestresowana w tamtym okresie. To ko peczolkało szkwnęło na sukli dzień pracy, szybko zmieniało się u sok znacznie bardziej niepokojącego. O 11:30 am Emma wysłała wspomnianego SMS-a do Clary. Czuję się dziwnie. Kiba będę musiała przerobić kolację. Ten groki tekst to się flejte niż komunikat o zulim samopoczuciu. To zapis roznaczego leku. To zapis ostatnich znanych slo Emmy, a ko ważniejsze, to popuszczek kęca żeś chciecia. Pytanie brzmi, ko bas kloknie sprawiło, że poczula się dziwnie? Czy była to intuicja, Чи може observacja tylko potwierdziła, że najgorsze podejrzenia? The neglected report. Emma Harrison failed to report for work on October 27th. Her supervisor, Mr. Malcolm Croft, noted her absence but didn't immediately follow up. He cited Emma's previous sick days as the reason for his inaction. This immediate dismissal of a missing employee, especially one working on a significant audit and stressed in the weeks prior, is where the case begins to unravel. The previous chapter established Emma's unsettling text to Clara, feeling off. Might need to reschedule tonight. A simple message that initially seemed like a cancellation for dinner. But for Clara, the lack of further contact, the unanswered calls became a nagging concern after 24 hours. So, she did what anyone would do. On October 27th at 7 p.m., Clara Harrison visited Emma's apartment. She found the door unlocked. A half-eaten meal was on the counter. Emma's purse and keys were present, but Emma was gone. This is where Detective Mark Riley enters the case. On October 28th at 10 a.m., he was assigned to Emma's disappearance. It was initially classified as a voluntary disappearance. A critical detail. Why voluntary? According to initial police reports, there was a lack of forced entry or signs of struggle. But what about the unlocked door? What about the keys and purse left behind? Those details, the ones that suggest an abrupt departure, were downplayed. They led to an immediate and perhaps premature conclusion. The question isn't just why Emma disappeared, but who or what shaped the early narrative so precisely. This classification as voluntary dramatically slowed the initial investigation. It meant fewer resources, less urgency, less critical examination of the scene. What doesn't add up is the gap between the evidence at the apartment and the official police interpretation. The unlocked door, the undisturbed keys and purse, these aren't typical signs of someone simply leaving of their own free will for a few sick days. They are, in fact, classic indicators of a sudden, unplanned departure. A departure that, the evidence suggests, was anything but voluntary. This initial report, this neglected report, set the stage for everything that followed. The unreliable witness, the neglected report, the initial dismissal of Emma's disappearance as voluntary. It created a vacuum. A space where a crucial, uneasy truth could hide in plain sight. Detective Riley knew it. He had a suspect, a senior partner within Sterling & Co., Richard Grant. But to connect Grant directly to Emma's vanishing, he needed more than deleted files. He needed a witness. And the clearest path to that witness led through Sarah Jenkins. Now, Sarah Jenkins wasn't just a colleague. According to payroll records, she was a junior analyst, directly reporting to Emma Harrison. They shared more than just an office floor. They shared access to the sensitive Phoenix Holdings audit. The timeline doesn't hold up if Jenkins is merely an observer. Her initial statement, taken on November 10th, stated Emma left work early on October 26th, citing illness. As we established, Emma's text to Clara mentioned feeling off, but the timing of Jenkins's statement, coming nearly 2 weeks after Emma vanished, already felt rehearsed. Jenkins provided a vague account, maintaining a nervous demeanor. But here's where it gets interesting. The digital forensics report confirmed the deleted files, directly implicating Richard Grant in a massive embezzlement scheme. This wasn't background noise, this was the motive. With this new evidence, Riley knew he had to re-interview Jenkins to push past the polite professional pretense. So on November 20th, 2022, Detective Riley brought Sarah Jenkins back in. The atmosphere was different this time. The initial casual conversation was replaced by direct questions, supported by printouts of Emma's deleted audit files, files that detailed the illicit transactions within Phoenix Holdings, linking them to Grant. The records showed Jenkins's name on several shared project folders related to that very audit. Jenkins was cornered. According to the interrogation transcript, Jenkins finally broke. She didn't just admit Emma left early, she admitted witnessing a heated argument between Emma Harrison and Richard Grant on the afternoon of October 26th. An argument over the audit, over the discrepancies Emma had uncovered. Jenkins described Grant as furious, his voice low but menacing. She stated, he threatened Emma, not physically, but professionally, warning her about the consequences of rocking the boat. What's more, Jenkins confirmed she was explicitly pressured by Grant to keep silent, to protect the company's image, and his own. That detail matters. It was not just a coworker's anxiety. It was fear, weaponized to obscure the truth. The missing hour. Sarah Jenkins sat across from Detective Riley again, this time under much different circumstances. Her initial story, that Emma Harrison had simply left early on the day she vanished, was now crumbling. The digital forensics report, detailing Emma's hidden investigation into Phoenix Holdings and the extensive financial fraud, forced Jenkins to confront a truth she'd hoped to bury. It wasn't just about what Emma found, it was about what Jenkins saw, or rather what she claimed not to have seen. The timeline, as Jenkins meticulously recounted it in her new, more truthful statement, showed Emma Harrison arguing heatedly with Richard Grant, a senior partner at Sterling & Co. This took place on the very day Emma disappeared. This contradicts Jenkins' first statement, a statement given under duress, as she later admitted. She was, according to her testimony, pressured to maintain silence. That detail matters because it paints a picture of a corporation deeply invested in controlling the narrative, even at the cost of the truth. What doesn't add up, however, is the exact duration of this argument and the precise moment of Emma's final exit from the building. Jenkins described it vaguely as short but intense. Yet, the building's own CCTV footage from November 16th shows something different. It reveals a critical gap. An hour between 4:30 p.m. and 5:30 p.m., where Emma Harrison's activity becomes largely unrecorded. She was seen entering an elevator at 4:28 p.m., her usual exit time. But she does not appear on any outward-facing cameras until much later, around 5:45 p.m., in the lobby, alongside an unknown man. That's more than an hour missing from the record, an hour where Emma should have been visible, should have been accounted for. The official version leaves this unexplained, citing a technical glitch in the surveillance system, but a single hour of missing footage, at a critical moment in a missing person's case, is rarely just a glitch. The evidence suggests a deliberate manipulation, a moment of blindness created within the system. The question then becomes, who benefited from that missing hour? And what exactly happened within those 60 minutes that someone wanted to keep hidden? Digital footprints falsified. Digital forensics. A term that conjures images of hidden data, erased trails, and the ghosts of digital lives. Up until this point, the official story treated Emma's disappearance as voluntary, as if she simply vanished into thin air. But the police finally had Emma's work computer provided by her supervisor, Mr. Malcolm Croft, on November 1st, 2022. And what they found there. That detail matters. Because here's where it gets strange. The initial analysis showed standard employee data, nothing out of place, nothing to suggest foul play. A clean slate, almost too clean. This apparent lack of digital struggle reinforced the idea of a voluntary departure. A meticulous investigator, however, knows that the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Sometimes, a lack of digital footprints can be a footprint in itself. It was on November 15, 2022, that digital forensics experts uncovered something crucial: numerous deleted files. Files meticulously scrubbed from Emma's hard drive, hidden deep within the system. Files that a person simply leaving their job wouldn't typically bother to erase. What kind of files? Not personal photos, not browsing history. These were work-related documents. And their content? A detailed scheme. Evidence of embezzlement and money laundering. It linked Phoenix Holdings, a client Emma had been corresponding with tensely, as her emails showed, directly to a senior Sterling & Co. executive. So Emma wasn't just feeling off, as her cryptic text to Clara suggested. She wasn't just tired of her job and running away. No, the deleted files painted a different picture entirely. They revealed she had discovered a massive financial fraud. This wasn't a personal crisis. It was professional. It was dangerous. And her silence benefited someone, or perhaps a group of people, significantly. This discovery fundamentally shifted the entire investigation. Emma Harrison was no longer just a missing person. She was a victim, a threat to a powerful, illicit operation. This fact, carefully hidden on her own computer, confirmed what Clara Harrison had suspected all along. Emma hadn't gone willingly. The question of who stood to gain from her silence, now sharper than ever, would eventually lead the investigation to a silent partner. The silent partner. CCTV footage from Emma's building. This was the critical moment. On the day of her disappearance, November 16, 2022, at 10 a.m., Detective Riley saw something. A brief, almost imperceptible interaction. Emma Harrison and an unknown man in a suit, not Mr. Croft. He was just outside the building. Now, recall the previous chapter where we exposed the falsified digital footprints. Emma's work computer revealed a detailed scheme of embezzlement and money laundering. This involved Phoenix Holdings and a senior Sterling & Co. executive. That detail matters, because it immediately shifts the lens. Emma wasn't just a missing person, she was a threat to a powerful operation. And here, this unknown man, he connected directly to that threat. The official version of events claimed a voluntary disappearance, a narrative designed to minimize the scope of the problem, but the camera doesn't lie. It showed a direct human interaction. Someone was watching Emma, someone was waiting, and that someone wasn't just a casual passerby. Detective Riley made this connection. He understood the potential implications, because what Emma had uncovered, a pattern of financial discrepancies within Sterling & Co., was not confined to a single client. It was systemic. Phoenix Holdings, a major client, was deeply intertwined, and now we have a physical presence observed on surveillance. This was no coincidence. The detail of a simple interaction, a silent acknowledgement, spoke volumes. This individual represented the silent partner, the unseen hand. The one who benefited most from Emma's silence. The investigation needed to identify him. That became the immediate priority. Finding him was the only way to understand who truly gained from Emma's sudden absence. And for a crucial time, his identity remained a mystery. But not for long. Pattern of omission. The office environment at Sterling & Co. was meticulously controlled. Every email, every meeting, every interaction supposedly documented. Yet, as Detective Riley dug deeper into Emma Harrison's final days, a clear pattern emerged, a pattern of omission. The official records were clean, almost too clean. Remember Sarah Jenkins, Emma's colleague? Her initial statement to Detective Riley was vague, evasive even. She claimed Emma left early on her last day, a detail that didn't align with the later discovery of Emma's work computer activity. That's where it gets strange. This wasn't just a lapse in memory. This was a deliberate narrative. The internal logs for October 26th showed Emma clocked out at her usual time. But the computer data, later recovered by digital forensics, proved Emma had been actively working for at least 2 hours beyond that recorded departure. What does this suggest? Someone manipulated the records. What isn't adding up here are the multiple layers of silence and misdirection. Sarah Jenkins's initial reluctance to speak, coupled with these altered records, points to a coordinated effort, a quiet conspiracy to obscure Emma's presence and her work. That detail matters, because it turned what could have been a simple, if tragic, disappearance into something far more sinister, an active cover-up. The official version leaves this unexplained. It also leaves unexplained why Emma's supervisor, Mr. Malcolm Croft, noted her absence but didn't immediately follow up. He cited Emma's previous sick days, but an employee missing during a critical audit, an audit Emma herself was leading? It begs the question, was it mere oversight, or was this also part of the pattern of omission? Who benefited from Emma's silence? This silence, this deliberate blind spot, created a window, a critical void in the timeline that allowed a crime to fester in the shadows. The overlooked detail. CCTV z budynku Emi pokazalo so si awejte niż tylko kodzieni ruch, ushilo kroka. Ledwo zatamuszalna interakcja. Zgodnie z analiza detektywa Rileya z 16 listopada 2022 roku, Emma abojla kroka rozmowy z nieznanym mieszantą garniturze. To nie był Malcolm Croft, jej przełożony. To była, jak się okazało, twarz, której nigdy się nie leczono z Emma. Ten szczegół, zbyt traktowy jako margines, nabiera wagi, bo na tym etapie śledztwa policja wciąż uparcie trzymała się wersji dobrowolnego zniknięcia. Oficjalne raporty konsekwentnie pomijali Suvsko, ko podważaloby te narracje, ale obraz nie klami. Mężczyzna, w długo pieniężnych ustaleń, ubrany w drogi, ciemny garnitur, joni podjął do Emmy, a ich rozmowa trwała zaledwie kilkanaście sekund. Emma miała naśpieta, jej ramiona były podniesione, dulnie zaciśnięte. The evidence suggests to nie było przypadkowe spotkanie. Wielu mogłoby przeoczyć ten fragment nagrania. Rozmyć tło, slaba jakość obrazu, krótka chwila. Ale to ebrzmi w takich momentach twój prawda. Detektyw Riley, kokol z nawikiem stukania długopisem, gej intencjoni myśli, przeżyjał ten kadr raz po raz. Dlaczego Emma, która rzekomo opuściła miasto z własnej woli, rozmawiała z jakimś tak nerwało tuż pod swoim, wtedy kiedy bezpiecznym adresem. Tu, kopeciorka koche wmyjalo na rutynowe nagranie, z czasem stało się kluczowym punktem, precyzowanie się śledztwo z teorii o dobrowolnym zniknięciu stranu zegoś zaniecznie bardziej złowrogiego. Ten drobny szczelt, ta krótka wymiana zdań, ten anonimowy bezizna, to wszystko zaczęło budować fundament pod opalien inna historie. Historie, która kazała zadać pytanie, ko tak rerande wydarzyło się przed tym, zanim Emma zniknęła? I kto był tym człowiekiem, loti zdawał się czekać wieczniu, gotów lecieć się ojecieć przed tym, jak ono się skończyło. Redefining the motive. The raid on Sterling & Co. sent shockwaves, exposing a labyrinth of financial malfeasance that reached into the highest echelons. For months, the official narrative had conveniently pointed to Emma Harrison as a victim of circumstance, a voluntary disappearance. But with Richard Grant and Arthur Simmons finally in custody, the true scale of what happened that night began to emerge. Interrogations revealed a chilling truth. Emma was not a runaway employee. She was a target, forcibly silenced because of what she knew. Her body, later recovered from a remote warehouse previously owned by Phoenix Holdings, confirmed the worst fears of investigators and Clara. The initial police reports, classifying her as voluntarily disappeared, were not merely an oversight. They were, as Detective Riley's team uncovered, a deliberate misdirection, enabled by unsympathetic police contacts of Simmons, designed to buy the culprit's precious time. That detail matters. This wasn't merely a case of an ambitious accountant stumbling upon fraud. This was an orchestrated assassination, a sophisticated cover-up, meticulously planned to ensure Emma's silence and protect a criminal enterprise. The motive had been redefined, moving from an abstract financial crime to a brutal act of murder. The evidence now spoke of a deep conspiracy where the powerful believed they were untouchable. The question that remained was how many others knew and how high up the chain of command this deception truly went. Confronting the narrative. The arrests of Richard Grant and Arthur Simmons ripped open the carefully constructed narrative of Emma's voluntary disappearance, of Sterling & Co.'s pristine reputation. It was all a lie. What doesn't add up is the initial police response. The report listed Emma as a voluntary disappearance, despite Clara's immediate concerns, despite the unlocked door, the half-eaten meal, and Emma's purse and keys left behind. These details, they scream foul play, yet the official version, the one put forward on October 28th, stated otherwise. And this wasn't just an oversight. During interrogations, it was revealed that Emma was forcibly taken, not disappeared voluntarily. Her body was later recovered from a remote warehouse previously owned by Phoenix Holdings. That chilling discovery not only confirmed the brutal truth that Emma Harrison was murdered, but it exposed something far more insidious. The initial voluntary disappearance report, the one that crippled Clara's early search efforts, was a deliberate misdirection. Sympathetic police contacts, individuals tied to Simmons and his network, had actively worked to derail the investigation, to buy time for Grant and Phoenix Holdings to cover their tracks. This wasn't negligence. This was active corruption within the system itself. Sarah Jenkins, who had initially lied to Detective Riley, finally broke down under the weight of the digital evidence. She admitted witnessing a heated argument between Emma and Richard Grant on Emma's last day. Jenkins had been pressured to stay silent. The fear, the intimidation tactics, they created a wall of silence around Emma Harrison. But the truth, as it often does, eventually found its way through the cracks. The narrative created by Grant, amplified by his connections, designed to bury Emma's story, it shattered. And in its place came a horrifying clarity. This wasn't just a case of a missing person. It was a murder, a cover-up, and a betrayal of public trust. The trial for Richard Grant and Arthur Simmons would begin, but the questions linger. How many others fell silent, and at what cost? The true cost of silence. The verdict was unequivocal. Guilty. Richard Grant and Arthur Simmons both responsible. Yet, justice in this case felt less like a triumph and more like a grim summation of systematic failures. Clara Harrison's powerful victim impact statement, delivered at the trial, echoed through the courtroom, a testament to Emma's bravery and a stark indictment of the institutions meant to protect her. "My sister was not just a name in a file," Clara stated, her voice unwavering. "She was a woman who saw injustice and refused to be silent. And for that, she paid the ultimate price." Her words hammered home the true cost of the corrupt silence that had surrounded Emma's case from the very beginning. Remember Clara, the determined sister who pushed when others gave up. It was her relentless pursuit, her refusal to accept the initial police narrative, that truly cracked this case open. The initial police report classifying Emma's disappearance as voluntary was a deliberate dead end. A calculated misdirection orchestrated by Simmons, leveraging his contacts within the force. According to interrogation transcripts captured on December 2, 2022, Simmons explicitly detailed how he used certain connections to ensure the case would be initially dismissed as a runaway. This wasn't negligence. This was active concealment, a chilling example of corruption reaching deeper than just corporate boardrooms. Emma's fate was sealed not just by the actions of Grant and Simmons, but by a chain of complicity that allowed the initial investigation to falter. The open loop from earlier chapters, why the police initially ignored the case, is now fully closed. The answer, unfortunately, is more insidious than incompetence. It was orchestrated. The forgotten victim wasn't just a product of oversight. Emma was actively suppressed. This deliberate blind spot gave Grant and Simmons crucial time to dispose of evidence, and Emma. This explains the 15 minutes unaccounted for between the 911 call and police arrival mentioned in the first chapter. Every minute mattered. Every minute was weaponized. The implications extend far beyond this single case. Emma Harrison's story forces us to look beyond the immediate crime and confront the structures that enable such atrocities. It's a stark reminder that the truth often hides not in the loudest moments, but in the deliberate silence of those who benefit from it. It shows us that courage is often met with great danger, and that a single person's integrity can unravel an empire of lies. Case closed. For now. There are always more files to open, more timelines to reconstruct, more truths hidden just beneath the surface. If you found this investigation compelling, if you believe in uncovering these truths one piece of evidence at a time, then support the evidence log. Like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button to join us as we continue to shine a light into the darkness. We have more cases waiting to be examined, more stories of the overlooked and the unheard, right here on the evidence log.